The planning conversation starts here on the Income Protection Podcast. Here's your host, Mike Cogdall and Grayson Owen.
All right, Mike, we're back. How's everything in the Panhandle, man?
It's like hot. It's good. We've had a little bit of torrentials, which has been key because, as you well know, where I live, lots of longleaf pines and forests. So we don't need major fires. They don't just happen out west. Like you just had a huge one, your part of the world, not that long ago. But it is hot and things are good. School's out, busy with, the children running around. So just summer plans. My life doesn't change much. This is what I do. So I'm good. What about yourself?
All is well. All is well. I'm clocking in long hours these days, which is a good sign. And getting ready for a long weekend in Hilton Head Island. I get a little anxious, being away from my work calendar, but there you have it. Going to take a few days off, I think. So we'll see how that goes, man. So I'm really excited today, Mike. We have a special guest.
For anybody that knows disability insurance, I wouldn't need to introduce Irwin Cohen, but I will. First, Irwin and I were just talking about, we met, I think, in Chicago at like around 92. So we've known each other for a couple of weeks. He's always been gracious enough to do things like this to help support the industry and tell people exactly how this goes. Irwin is probably one of the top, if not one of the very top producers for years and years and years, specifically in individual disability insurance. And the methods that he uses, I find and have always found just so extremely captivating and interesting that I would like to talk to him every day, but he doesn't have time because he works so gosh darn hard. And he'll probably just work, as they used to say in the military, they'll probably work till they put a toe tag on him. So I will too, and you will too, but that's okay. But Irwin is recently moved. I'll let him explain it, but I'm honestly saying I'm most excited about this podcast of all the podcasts I've ever done to have Irwin join us today and just tell us about his career, disability insurance in general, and just his underlying thoughts about how you can make it in this business. And Irwin's the kind of guy that can tell you personally that it's not impossible. So without further ado, Irwin, welcome to the podcast.
Well, guys, it's wonderful to be here. Flattered to be invited to share. And for those of you who are listening now or in the future, my hope is that, with the help of the big guy upstairs, I'll be able to share something that'll make a difference for you. And since Mike, I'm not getting paid, so I hope it makes a difference somewhere.
This is philanthropic today, my friend. So I'm not telling everybody we had to do this at 5:30 because Irwin works from basically 7 a.m. till 5:30 or 6 every night, and we don't interrupt the work schedule because that's how disciplined this man is.
You can talk to me during those hours if you're interested in buying some insurance. But many, many years ago, there was a life insurance industry great named Joe Gandolfo, and I heard him in it was probably 1977 or 78, back in the days when there was a large number of life insurance agents, a couple hundred mutual companies recruiting and training sales agents. And he spoke to the Chicago Association of Life Underwriters. And he had this line that impacted me. He was down somewhere in Florida, and he was calling on business owners and farmers. And he would say to them, tell me when you're not making money so I can call on you and talk about me making some money. And Joe Gandolfo didn't do anything during business hours but talk to people who were potential clients or clients. So, one of the most sacred things in our industry is how you manage your time. And so I came into the insurance industry at the age of 20 in 1977 or 78. I had pretty much been fired from every job I ever had, not because I didn't work hard, but I always thought they were doing it wrong. And when I didn't follow orders and did it my way, I would get fired. A couple times I got hired back and I got fired again. But I always felt that I worked harder, that I cared more, that I hustled more. But the boss's favorite always got the raise. The boss's favorite always got the day off. I never felt like I was treated right. And when I came into the insurance industry, it all changed. I answered an ad, again, 1977 or 78. It was to sell accident insurance door to door. They didn't tell you what it was. All they did is they told you how much money the people were making. And they sent me out with a guy to watch himself for the day. It was an accident policy that cost $40 a year. And if you were hospitalized from an accident, it paid $20 a day. Now, the way the presentation went is, Mike, that's $600 a month for 10.8 cents a day. Tell me, if you were hospitalized from an accident, could you use an extra 600 a month? And you went door to door, cold called businesses, gave a presentation, and asked them to buy on the spot. So here's the point as it relates to time management. You couldn't hide out in the office, run illustrations, follow up on underwriting. There was no email in 1977 or 78. And you were trained to walk into enough businesses in the course of the day where you actually asked 10 people a day to buy. At the end of the first week, I had written 22 accident policies. I made $440. On Saturday, I showed the check to my mother and she said, "Is that for the month?" Now, so the first point of the dialogue here is the only thing there was to do is go out door to door and ask people to buy. And they either said yes or no. And you were trained to make enough approaches that at the end of the day, you asked 10 people, you got to the end of the presentation. Now, so the first point is, what do you do with your time? There's two types of work in this business, the important work and the necessary work. The important work is calling people and asking them to speak with you about protecting themselves and going and seeing them. The necessary work is everything else. And in my life, the only thing I do, Mike said 7 o'clock. I'm slowing down. I start at 8 a.m. and I work till about 6:30. I finish early on Friday, like at 4 o'clock. And other than having a team meeting, I have 8 employees. We have a meeting every day from 11 to 11:30. Most of my time during that time period is either on the phone asking for appointments or running appointments. I don't do anything else. I'm not very good at anything else. So the first point is, how are you using your time? Now, are you hanging? Most of you probably work at home. How much time do you spend? So here's what happens when you set a goal and you're going to manage your time. You think about, did I feed the dog? Did I take the garbage out? Did I get the mail? I'll start in an hour. No, you don't do it that way. You set a schedule. So my schedule is from 8 to 5:30. I'm either on the phone asking for an appointment or running an appointment other than that team meeting. And that's all I do during that time. Sometimes I get calls from people, from wholesalers in the insurance industry, and I tell them, just like Mike said earlier, you want to talk to me if it's Eastern time, it's after 6:30 Eastern time, Monday through Thursday. This amazes me. I don't end up talking to a lot of them because here's what they say. Well, I'm not available after hours. I have to go home with the kids. Whatever. Not my problem. You want to talk to me about you making some money. You're not going to do it when I'm making money. So, number one, if you want to succeed, manage your time and guard your time. Make it sacred. You don't do anything during selling time but selling. The next thing I learned, selling accident insurance. I did it for 7 months. At the time, I thought it was a horrible way to make a living. Um, they would send you out to the boondocks because people in the city of Chicago wouldn't listen to you, and you go door to door. Here's the first thing I learned. You need to specialize. So I learned to specialize in gas stations. In those days, there were a lot of gas stations, and on top of the door was the owner's name. And also the mechanics and the owners had these uniforms and their name was on their shirt. So you could walk in and so I remember the very first place I ever called. I have a good memory. It was in Elgin, Illinois, about an hour northwest of Chicago, and it was Barney Pohl's Phillips 66 station. And Barney's name was over the door. It was also right here on his shirt. And I walked in and I said, "Hi, are you Barney?" And he just smiled and looked at the name tag and smiled back. And I went through the presentation and he bought an accident policy. So the next thing is, if you're going to succeed in this business, you can't be everything to everybody. If you're trying to be everything to everybody on every meeting, you have to reinvent the wheel. I'll talk more about that in a moment. So number one, manage your time. Number two, find a couple markets and specialize. At some podcast in the future, I'll come back to this. I'm about 90 days out from launching a coaching program, and the coaching program will be a year program, and it's all about teaching you how to get in a market and specialize. So in the idea of the coaching program, and I won't spend much time on it now, most of you don't have a challenge when you're in front of someone conducting business. The challenge you have is you're not getting in front of enough people. So time management, number one. Number two, find a market and specialize. Number three, enthusiasm. Why did I have the best week in 7 months the first week? Because I wasn't listening to the other salespeople telling me how horrible this was. I was enthusiastic. I thought it was a great opportunity. So how enthusiastic are you? How much do you believe in what you do? I'll give you an example of the value of what we do. I asked one of Mike's colleagues at Principal. I'm an independent broker. I do a lot of business with Principal. I'm very fond of them. I asked them if they could run my claim numbers, and I specialize these days in lawyers. If you called me and weren't a lawyer, want to do some business, I may or may not talk to you, not because I don't want to help you, but I can tell you everything about lawyers. I can tell you their benefits. I can tell you their incomes. I can tell you if they like or dislike the job. I can tell you what the odds are they're going to stay in their firm. I know more about their benefits than their HR people do. Now, you want to be in a market and specialize, and then you can speak their language. So again, time management, number one. Number two, be in a market and specialize. Number three, enthusiasm. Here's where I was going with the lawyer dialogue. So I asked Bob Herman, one of Cogdall's buddies, if Principal could run a history of the last 20 years on my lawyers. And here's what we found out, give or take $1. And the last 20 years, Principal's paid 78 of my lawyers $9 million of disability benefits. Now, I can tell you a couple things. Now, one of those 78 lawyers, when I suggested they protect themselves, thought they would be disabled, number one. Number two, I can't tell you that they were going to be disabled. But number three, I'll tell you this. That money made a difference for each and every one of them. There's only two ways to generate money legally. Money at work or people at work. If you have a big portfolio, so let's say you have $10 million in a portfolio, and if you put it in something without risk, you're going to throw off 3% net, about $300,000 a year. That means if you make $300,000 a year after taxes, maybe you're a $500,000 a year professional, you make $300,000 after taxes, you need a $10 million portfolio to replace your $300,000 of income. My client base has very high income, but until they get about 60 years old, they don't have $10 million. So number one, two ways to make money. Money at work. If you have enough portfolio assets that you don't need to work, you don't necessarily need disability insurance. Money at work or people at work. If you need your paycheck, it's your most valuable asset. It has to be insured. Now, I will tell you there is more opportunity today than there has ever been in the insurance industry, and here's why. So 1977, 78, I start selling accident insurance. I did it for 7 months. Then I went to work at Prudential. Now, when I sold an accident policy, I made $20. 50% commission on a $40 premium. There weren't any renewals. I go to work at Prudential, and some of you relate to this. You had to do this Project 100 or Project 250. You had to make a list of everyone you knew. And the way the life insurance industry used to work is the sales manager would run calls with you. You write everyone you knew, and then you'd go work somewhere else because you didn't have any prospects. But anyway, I go to work at Prudential. We call on a couple gas station mechanics because I worked at a gas station when I was a kid. And we write $100 a month whole life policy on each of them. I made $600 on, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get rich. So I worked at Prudential. And my common complaint at Prudential, and I'll come back to why there's never been a better time to be doing this and why disability insurance. So I worked at Prudential the first year I was Rookie of the Year. I had all this enthusiasm. By year two, I'm struggling. Why am I struggling? They couldn't teach me how to find people to do business with. That wasn't the worst, but I didn't feel I understood what I was doing. I would be calling on mom and dad, kitchen table selling. I'd be explaining what I do. I'd look down at my notes, look up, and I catch them rolling their eyes at each other going, how are we going to get this guy out of here? So I went from Prudential to Aetna. Another scenario repeated itself. And then in 1985, to really cement the fact that I didn't know what I was doing, Pac Mutual hired me as a sales manager. Why did I want to be a sales manager? You had some guaranteed income, enough to starve to death on, but it looked attractive. My common complaint at all three carriers, I need training. Now, when I became a sales manager, I found out why the training was so lame, and here's what I found out. The life insurance industry back in the day found out if you took a given number of potential salespeople, and in those days we were salespeople, we weren't advisors. You took 1,000 salespeople, trained them for 5 years, sent them out to sell. 85, 90% of them failed. If you took the same 1,000 people without any training at all, sent them out to sell, 85%, 90% failed. So there was no value in spending money on training people. Now, 1985, I'm going to a Pacific Life conference in Hawaii. I remember the conference for a number of reasons. I didn't sell enough insurance for my wife to go, and I was going alone because I couldn't afford to bring her. But industry legend, no longer with us here in the physical world, Peter Mullen was going to be at the meeting, and Peter Mullen's a legend. You can research him on the web. He was a pretty incredible guy, and the whole flight to Hawaii, the whole plane ride, I kept thinking, what can I ask Peter Mullen? And it finally dawned on me. Peter Mullen was about 7 feet tall, unbelievably successful, very unassuming. And I went up to him, I introduced myself, and here's what I said. Every time I walk in the office, I get a plaque telling me how great I am. I don't know where my next piece of business is coming from. I'm hiding from the bill collector. What's the difference between the two of us? And here's what Peter Mullen said. He said, if you look at anyone in this industry that's doing well, they're in a market and they specialize. Now, I didn't quite not know what to do with that. And I have a dear friend and a mentor, Eugene Cohen. Eugene Cohen, who's still going into his 80s, changed my life. I brainstormed with him and he said, why don't you specialize in disability insurance? And I wasn't quite sure, but here's what appealed to me. Every January 1, I wake up, life insurance, all first year compensation. In 1985 or so, when I joined under Eugene's mentorship, I arrived at a very painful point in my life. I figured out that I was a conscious incompetent. Now, what does that look like? There's 4 levels of competence. Unconscious incompetence. You're not any good, you suck, but you're so foolish you don't know you're not any good. Next level, conscious incompetence. You figure out that you're not very good. Next level, unconscious competence. You're good, but you don't know why. And the pinnacle, which I'll tell you that I am today, conscious competence. You're good, you know you're good. You're the Michael Jordans, the Tiger Woods, the Muhammad Alis. You can get the job done. So in 1985, I figured out I really didn't know what I was doing. It was a very painful place, some personal introspection. It was a terribly painful place to be. And here's Eugene Cohen was telling me about disability insurance renewals, and here's what I decided to do. Muhammad Ali is one of my life heroes. I can tell you Muhammad Ali's life story in a quote from George Foreman. George Foreman said, if you think Muhammad Ali was a great boxer, you don't know who he was as a human being. If you've not seen the movie When We Are Kings, documentary about Ali fighting Foreman, you want to see it, here's the story. Muhammad Ali wanted to get the title from George Foreman. Foreman was younger, stronger, meaner. And Ali's handlers thought at worst, Foreman would maim, at best, Foreman would maim him. At worst, he would kill him. And if you watch the movie, Ali is whispering and Foreman is wailing on Ali like you can't believe, swinging for the fences. And Ali's clinching and whispering in his ear, George, is that all you got? George, my mama hits harder than you. George, your punches ain't breaking popcorn. And in the 8th round, George got knocked out. Muhammad got the title back. The documentary's fascinating. So I read a couple biographies on Ali, and here's what one of them said. And I took a page from his book. Here I am suffering as a conscious incompetent. And Ali decided the only thing he had to do to regain his title was to suffer every day. More sparring, more medicine ball, more running, getting up early, more, And so he said, I hated every day of training, but I said to myself, suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. So here's what I decided. I now understand that I suck at what I do. And the only thing that's going to save me looks like this. I looked around my peer group, the other people in the industry. I thought they were better looking, they were better educated, they were more talented, they were more socially connected. And I thought the only thing that is going to save me is if I work harder than anyone else. And here was my plan. From age 30 to age 40, to work hard enough to save $100,000 a year, And by age 40, I'd have $1 million and I could get out of this miserable business once and for all. So,
We've all said that. We've all said
so,
that.
so I started cold calling like a madman. And here's a goal for you. Most of you, when you're calling, you're setting a goal to hear people say yes. Throw that away. It's stupid. It doesn't work. You got to set a goal of how many people are going to tell you no. So my goal back then was to have 25 people every day tell me no on the phone. Now, I don't have that goal anymore because I'm so good on the phone. I can't get 25 people to tell me no. Most of the people I call on cold call, by the way, tell me yes. So here's what happened when I gave way to the willingness to suffer, the willingness to be rejected, to the willingness to people hang up on me, tell me to get lost, ghost me. I think somewhere, by the way, in the ethos of the world is a club that people belong to, and they get together and they socialize. And here's the criteria for the club: that you've ghosted Irwin Cohen. So, so 25 people a day to tell me no. And all of a sudden, I'm leading the company I'm right in business with. I led this company. They're no longer in the business like a lot of DI companies for over a decade. And here's what I learned: in the willingness to suffer and to work hard and to just push as hard as I could possibly push, I got really good. By the way, by the time I was 40, I did have the $1 million. Ask my ex-wife; she can tell you about it. Um,
Of
I
course.
did have the $1 million, but I didn't want to get out of the business anymore. And here's the other thing that happened. And Mike and his colleague and the guys on the wholesale side can map out the renewals for you. The renewals in disability insurance are unbelievable. In fact, if you've ever seen the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the author Robert Kiyosaki, and I might be mangling his name, when he tells you about how to make money, one of the things he has on there is vested renewals. So why is it the best time to be in the world, in this business in the world ever, and specifically in the disability business? 78, 77, 78, I go to work at Prudential. You call on a potential client. There were a boatload of companies, maybe 200 life insurance companies, recruiting and training agents. Everybody had a guy. I got a New York Life guy. I got John Hancock. I got MetLife. Everyone had a guy. Now, here's what happened. Around 1985, financial planning became chic and fashionable. Why sell life insurance when you could be a financial planner? In fact, right around 1986, Forbes magazine had a cartoon. It was one of the New York hot dog vendors on the corner, and it had a menu: soda pop 50 cents, hot dogs $1, full financial services $1.50. Everybody wanted to be a financial planner. Here's what's happened going forward from 1985 to today. When people who sold insurance start managing money, they stop selling insurance. So in all the calls I run, and on a busy day, I'll have 12 appointments. On a slow day, I'll have 6 appointments. I don't ever find anyone who's being called on for disability insurance or life insurance. They have financial advisors, and you say to them, "Did your FA ever ask you about insurance?" "Well, we talked about it briefly." "Did you enact any?" "No, we really didn't drill down." It's great to have money to manage, but if you die or are disabled and your life is not in order because you don't have insurance, there ain't going to be any money to manage. So there's not anybody doing this. Here's what you have to do to be good at it. You have to go what Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, says: you have to go to the school of transactions. What does that look like? If you've done 50 disability interviews, you're better than when you've done none. When you did 500, you're a lot better. The school of transactions: once you do 1,000 interviews, you'll be a master at it, and you work on your craft. You're getting well paid and building renewal income to help people. It's not something anyone else is helping them with, and they need it. And if you can learn how to overcome their knee-jerk reaction, which I'll talk about, you can help them. And you're unique because they're getting called on by financial advisors. And financial advisors are a dime a dozen, not to disparage them, but they're not protecting the income they want to manage. So there's never been a better time. Now, here's the biggest challenge in doing this. late great John Savage, wonderful life insurance agent, used to say, if you're going to have a duck soup for dinner, you got to have a duck. You got to pick up the phone and call. You need to work a market. You need to learn how to make cold calls. Why am I saying that? If you go on LinkedIn and look for help finding leads, and I don't like the name leads, I like the name potential clients. Leads just sounds cheap to me. But you go on LinkedIn and you'll find vendor after vendor with a framework that looks like this. Cold calling is dead. Now, I want you to pay attention to something. No one will tell you cold calling is dead unless they want you to give them some money to show you how to do it some other way. You can't delegate. If you want to get fit, you can't delegate your sit-ups and your push-ups. You got to learn to do the work. The problem with cold calls is not that they don't work, it's that you don't know how to do them. You've never been trained, because home offices manufacture products and underwrite business. They can't teach you to do it. I'm 48 years in the industry. The closest anyone ever came to teaching people how to do it was years ago at one of the companies with the one card system. And I don't think that's a good system anymore. But there's a way to work in markets to learn how to do this and write a boatload of business. And a book everyone's heard me talk about by a wonderful man named Jub Blunt is called Fanatical Prospecting. If you buy the book, study the book, and do what it says, you'll be able to pull this off. So I love the business. I'm 68 years old. I hope I can do this, as Mike said, till they put a toe tag on me. I think if you want people, friends of mine will say, why do you work so hard? This isn't hard work. I used to go and try to run 10 appointments face to face a day. On a good day, I'd see 6, 7 people. That was hard work. I roll out of bed. I have 8 employees. They all work from home. By 8 o'clock, I'm at my desk. I never leave the house, and I help people all day long. I'm well paid for it. I build hundreds of thousands of dollars in renewals by making a difference for people. Now, here's how you help people. Early in my career, I wanted to write insurance to get paid. Guess what? It doesn't work. You have to be obsessed with helping people. And if your only mission is to help people, and that's what you're focused on, people will sense that. If your mission is to try to sell something, they'll sense that too, and they'll run the other way. When I was trained, for the little bit of training I had at Prudential, the training went something like this. They gave us some orphan policyholders. These are people whose agents left. And I was trained to call the orphan policyholders. And when I got to the appointment, the first thing I was trained to say is, Mr. and Mrs. Cogdall, I'm not allowed to come back. You have to make a decision tonight. Can you imagine someone coming in your house and saying this? But in 1978, pressure was the game. That doesn't work today. You have to build rapport by understanding people's needs. And building rapport is not about small talk. People don't want small talk. You've got to be articulate. You got to learn your game. You got to get to the point quickly. Let them know you're there to help. And here's the most powerful thing you can do on an opening call is, if I was calling Mike Cogdall tomorrow and we had an appointment, the first thing I'd say is, Mike, let's be on the same page. I have not the slightest idea if what I do will have value to you. And even if it has value to you, I don't know if you'll be comfortable with how I do this, if you want to work with me. So here's what I want to tell you. I'll do my best to see if I can add value and earn your business. At the end of the day, if it resonates with you, we'll do some business. If it doesn't, send me on my way and we will part as good friends. You want to relieve buying pressure. And when you do this, people drop their guard. So with that said, I'll let you guys ask me some questions. I'll tell you, this is the simplest business in the world if you do what you need to do, and that's find a market, get proficient, make calls, and you have to be willing to spend a while to get good at it. I'm going to get the number wrong, but when the Beatles became successful, they were doing 5 shows a night in London at clubs, 7 nights a week. They played thousands and thousands of concerts before they hit that Sullivan Show on the stages in America. So you've got to go through the period of learning what you're doing, and people give up too soon before they get great at what they do. So with that said, I'll let you guys have at me and see if I can put anything else in perspective.
One of the questions I have, Erwin, when it comes to cold calling, and I'm an avid believer in it because I was taught the same way. I have no problem talking to anybody anywhere. You told me a long time ago the phone doesn't bite or something along those lines, so it didn't really matter. But where you specialized in doctors at one point. We don't have to talk about that long story, and then switched to attorneys because it became a crowded house, bigger pain in the butt, all kinds of things. So you can even switch your markets and go forward. But where do you acquire the attorneys' names is what people would want to ask you first. How do you
So,
get names? Before you cold call, you got to have a number.
so, once upon a time, we had to buy lists and they were expensive.
Yeah, I remember. I've done the same thing, even for
There
insurance
weren't, there,
brokers.
there wasn't an internet. There weren't websites. So, um, you can find pretty much all the names you need on the web, on websites, or just Googling names. And if you look at, so here's an example. Let's say you wanted to work with people who own fast food franchises. You get an association directory. You can probably buy it online or get the names online. And then here's something else you need when you're acquiring the list. Um, my database, I probably have 60,000 lawyers in my database, and Arlene, who works for me, refreshes it every 6 weeks because I make so many calls. You need thousands and thousands of names because you need to make thousands and thousands of calls and have thousands of people tell you to get lost. But you go on the web, you look at an association, get their directory, you look at websites. I used to work off of LinkedIn a little bit, but the problem is I have a big appetite and I need a large number of names. So, and while I'm on that, it just reminded me of something. So, years ago they said you should work on referrals. What do referrals look like? And this used to work. I'm sitting down with Mike and his wife for an interview, and afterwards, there's a whole system Al Granum created on how you feed Mike the name, and it would be something like this. Mike, are you and the missus happy about the work we've done? And of course, Mike would say yes. And I would say, listen, that's great. I wanted to take a moment, and here's the next step in feed the name. I want to take a moment and ask you about your friend Bob Herman. And Mike might draw back a little bit and go, well, why are you asking me about Bob? And the framework was, well, I'm thinking Bob might be somebody who would benefit from this kind of work. I'm going to be reaching out and introducing myself to him. Is it okay if I tell him you and I work together? Now, Mike's on the spot, and it'd be very difficult for him to say no. And then I call Bob Herman. And I say, Bob, did Mike mention my name to you? Now, the answer is going to be no, but I had the leverage of their relationship. Years ago, this worked pretty good. People have become more sensitive. It doesn't work as well. It's not to say it can't give you some traction, but here's the point as it relates to cold calls. In the time and effort I have to take to ask Mike about Herman and call Herman, I can make 10 or 15 cold calls and generate a half a dozen potential clients. So the answer to your question is you go on websites, you look at association directories. If you're working in markets, so let's say you work in Bank America, you get a couple people there, you understand their benefits, you research on the web how to find people. Now, years ago, this hasn't changed. When I started in 77, 78, I was taught the definition of a potential client. They called it a prospect. I don't like the word prospect. I like a potential client or a potential person I can serve. Number one, you have to be able to reach them. Number two, they have to have the need. Number three, they have to have the money. Number four, they have to be insurable. So you have to be able to get them on the phone. You have to be able, they have to have the need. They have to have the money. They have to be insurable. So Mike mentioned years ago, I called on physicians and dentists. This was before the do not call list. And I would, from my dentist and physician clients, get list of doctors with their home names, and I would call them at home at night. And the abuse I took was horrible, but it worked. So did I answer your question where you get the names?
Oh, absolutely. Next question. Along the same lines, and this is what I run it, working with young people. We have people that were born into technology. My daughter is the same age as the iPhone. My mistake giving it to her so young because I didn't know what its potential causes, good and bad could be. That being said, two questions. One, people would always ask, and so this would be asked of you, is how do you get past a gatekeeper?
So a gatekeeper's trained to screen calls, and they're very robotic. So here's what you do. So in the days I was calling on dentists, so if you work a market, so in the days I was working dentists, let's say, or physicians, I subscribed to a magazine called Dental Economics. I subscribed to a magazine called Medical Economics. I would find an article in those magazines about the subject, disability insurance. And then when the gatekeeper would say, "Why are you calling Dr. Cogdell?" I said, "I'm following up on an article that was in Dental Economics." Now, the problem for the gatekeeper is they get a brain cramp. No one ever said that to them. And they put me on hold and go, "Dr. Cogdell, there's a person on the phone following up on an article from Dental Economics." What you have to do is you can't do what all the other salespeople do. So here's what this looks like. First of all, I notice language has become informal. I get phone calls sometimes and emails that say, "Hey, Irwin." I want to reach through the phone and slap the people. "Good afternoon, Mr. Cohen. Good afternoon, Irwin. Good morning, Irwin." So the way you get through gatekeepers is to not act like a salesperson. The way you connect with people is not to act like a salesperson. So the gatekeeper puts me through to Dr. Cogdell, and here's what the dumb salespeople do. They go like this: "Hey, Dr. Cogdell, how are you today?" And Cogdell's subconscious or conscious is going, "Salespeople, help me. What do you want?" That's not how you do it. Um, Dr. Cogdell, it's Irwin Cohen. I doubt highly you were expecting my call. The odds are you're probably not interested in what I'm going to share with you. Can I have 3 minutes of your time? Now, no one ever said that. And they drop their guard and go, "Boy, this guy's different." You have to think how they think. So if you put a little effort into it and just say, "What does a salesperson normally do?" and do the opposite, and you want to be real, you want to be authentic.
And then let's go back to an attorney. When you're talking to an attorney, you do 3 minutes. What's the next step for you? Because I know you don't do 20 appointments with every client. That's what financial planners do. And I too am not dissing financial planning one bit, but they will. I have skipped so many financial plans in my life, everyone, as a sidebar, because I don't have the attention span to do 2 hours of all the stuff we have to do. So what do you do next?
So to speak to your point, just so people have context, in 1985, when financial planning became chic and fashionable, you hire someone to do a financial plan. You get a 300-page 3-ring binder. In everything in that binder, 298 pages were boilerplate. And nobody did the plan because they were overwhelmed. So here's the reality. You don't want to burn down a house to roast a pig. You want to get right to the point, and here's the point. And you want to flatter people and compliment them instead of tell them they're stupid. And so here's what it might look like if I'm talking to a lawyer. Mike, most lawyers are pretty good with their personal finances. They put themselves under a lot of pressure. They never think they're good enough, but they probably are good, and you're probably better at it than you think. However, because you got into a good college and graduated, you got into a great law school and graduated, you sat for and passed the bar, you work for one of the biggest law firms in the world and they pay you handsomely, you've probably been way too busy to think about what would happen if you're disabled, and it's not something you think is ever going to happen. My business is helping lawyers protect their income. I don't want to keep you today. I'd like a 10-minute call. I'll put the framework together on how I help attorneys and how I've worked with other lawyers in your firm. If it resonates with you, we'll dig deeper. And if it doesn't, it's easy to get rid of me. Could we talk next week? Would that be okay?
And how many are yeses?
I get appointments with 73% of the people I call.
So that's 3 out of 4. Let's just bump it up
Yeah,
two
now
numbers, two digits.
here's
Let's
the-
bump it up 2 digits. It's 3 out of 4.
That's an incredible ratio, by the way.
But here's why. And here's why earlier I said you're trying to be all things to all people. I speak lawyer. When I called on physicians and dentists, I spoke dentist. I spoke physician. When I called on gas station owners, I spoke gas station. So I can talk in the verbia of their industry, and it doesn't take them long for them to understand that I know their business. And I know I have so many lawyers that I've talked to that I can talk from their point of view. Now, the dialogue I just gave you has come from understanding lawyers. And I can tell you more about lawyers without meeting them than they know about themselves. Earlier, I told you I know more about their benefits than their HR people. And so I can add a lot of value. And Mike, back to your point about, you know, 2-hour financial plan. In today's world, everybody wants it instant, instant, instant. Get direct, get to the point. Give me the Cliff Notes version. If you got to be on and by the way, none of this is that complex. John Savage used to say there's two sales, the easy one and the one you don't get. When people want and sometimes I still get caught up in this. I'm an independent broker. I get an analytical person. They want to see the market. Okay, we've got 6 players. I'm going to spreadsheet the market. Do you know I take the time to do it? Not one of those people ever does business with me because they're looking for data. They don't want to solve a problem. So you got to get to the point quickly. And if you work in an industry, you can understand the industry and understand their pressures and understand what they're dealing with. And then they get that intrinsically. And what happens is when let's say you had 10, let's say one of your brokers or advisors next week has 10 appointments with 10 different professions from 10 different walks of life with 10 different situations. They're reinventing the wheel in every scenario, and it doesn't work. It's too hard. So if I talk to 8 or 10 lawyers tomorrow, and I will, it doesn't take me long because I know all about them before I even call, because I've been calling on lawyers for decades. So if you work a market, when you're working a market, you understand a lot about the people before you even call on them, and you can make work much quicker. So if I'm calling on a first-year associate in a large law firm, I can say, Mike, are you a first-year associate? You say, yeah. I said, so are you making 235 this year? Yes. You have any law school debt? Yes. How about undergrad debt? Yes. So I can talk in terms in their market. So the reason I can get all these appointments, yes, I'm pretty good at making appointments, but that's not why I'm getting such a high ratio. I'm getting such a high ratio because I understand the people I'm talking to. I understand everything about them. And I didn't do that from studying them in a book. I did that from running thousands of appointments.
So how many appointments do you have a week, just so the viewing audience can get a pretty good handle on exactly what you're talking about?
So when I wake up on Monday, there's about 125 appointments scheduled.
A week.
Now, a week. Now, here's the downside of the high volume I do. These lawyers are ridiculously busy. So if I'm supposed to talk to you at 9 a.m. and you're an associate at a firm, and at 8:55, 3 partners throw work on your desk, you might stand me up.
Absolutely. To be
But
expected.
here's something people don't understand. Follow-up is a strategic advantage. I want to see it 2 more times. Follow-up is a strategic advantage. Follow-up is a strategic advantage. You don't show up for the call, I'm not going to take it personally. We have a system. It's called POF. Rebecca, one of my team, sends you an email. Mike, I bet you were putting out a fire at 9 a.m. when we're going to talk. No worries. Happens to everyone in law firms. Let's try next Monday at the same time. Sending you an invite. Please accept it or change it to work with your calendar. Now, when I was younger and less experienced, I'd send an email and go, hey, knucklehead, you stood me up. My time's important. Bada bing, bada boom. How much traction did that get me? So I run a high volume of appointments, and I'm sure when people hear me say this, they're going, there's no way someone can do that. And I'll share a story, and I doubt Phyllis Shelton, who's a long-term care expert and great trainer, has ever heard this. Most people probably don't know she is. Incredible woman. Years ago, I'm at a long-term care training. She knew me pretty well. And she said, how many appointments do you run a day? In those days, I was running 10 appointments in person. She asked if she could come to Chicago and shadow me, and I said yes. At the end of the day, she said, you know why I wanted to come to shadow you? I said, no. She said, I thought you were full of it. I didn't believe anyone could do this. And the day she was with me, we ran 10 appointments. We wrote probably 6 cases. So the idea that you have to spend hours doing analysis and putting all kinds of stuff together, this is not that complex. Everything we do is not that complex. If you can't do it on one sheet of paper and explain it in 15 minutes or less, you better figure out how to do that. Because if you want to complicate it and extrapolate it and make it more than it is, look, at the end of the day, there used to be a life insurance guy, George, I think his name was George Steinberger. I heard him speak at the Life Association meeting in 1978. He had what he called the instant close, and here was it. He never, no fact finding, no nothing. He would say, Mike, why don't you want to buy any life insurance from me? Now, whatever Mike answers, you're in a closing interview. So when it comes to disability insurance, I know you don't want to buy disability insurance. Can we put that aside for just a moment? Is that okay? Yes, fine. If you were disabled, do you want to make sure your family and you were financially okay? Yes or no? Yes. If you could protect your income and it fit in with your philosophy and your pocketbook, would you like to get a grasp in your hands on what it looks like and see if it's viable for you? Yes or no? You know, there's an analogy I'm fond of. It's a bad idea to teach a pig to sing because they can't carry a tune and it annoys the pig. If my premise is sound, people can't fight me. If you like the idea of making sure you have income if you're disabled, then let's dance. If you don't like it, I have thousands of people to get to, and I don't want to arm wrestle with you. I don't enjoy that. Those days are gone. If it makes sense, if it fits in with your philosophy and pocketbook, let me help you do it. If it doesn't, I'm fond of saying, Mike, at the end of my dialogue with you, if you'd rather get a root canal without anesthetic, get rid of me. If what I say makes sense, then let's do it.
Well, you're always pretty good at throwing a little levity in there too, which does help.
So I love humor. I love humor. I want to laugh with people and get them laughing. One of the things I love to say is, let me give you some really good advice. If you can promise me you won't get disabled, we can abort this call right now. Why bother?
There it is. You just gave everybody what they need to do in a single sentence. Now I have a question for you that's a little bit of again, off the subject, but kind of on the subject. Those 10 appointments that the lady went with you in Chicago,
yeah.
Was she also on a bike or did you drive that day?
In those days,
Irwin used to ride a bike around the city all day long. Anyway.
So actually, I never rode a bike. What you're thinking of is we were having a principal dinner with you and some of the people, and I went home and rode the bike downtown that night.
That's right. That's right.
But in those days, all my calls were downtown. Some were walking distance. As time went on before COVID, I had a driver because while the driver, even though I was working maybe in a 5-mile radius, the driver could drive me to point A to point B, and between appointments, I could be on the phone. So in those days, we were walking appointment to appointment or taking a cab. I've had a couple people follow me, they want to shadow me, and by 10:30 in the morning, they're like, I can't keep up with you. I beg it for mercy. So these days, it's all over the phone. But at one point before COVID, I had a driver. I pay someone $20 an hour, drive me around for 9 hours a day, and it increased my productivity.
How much of yours is Zoom versus regular phone, just because this is the world we live in now?
None. When COVID first kicked in, I thought Zoom would be good. Nobody wants to do Zoom. The lawyers are too busy.
I agree, but people ask me that all the time. It's like, do you do Zoom calls? And I go, just on the podcast.
Yeah. I think Zoom might be better. Here was the biggest challenge, transitioning from face-to-face to phone calls. So after all these years, I have, the art of listening. You can listen with your ears. You can listen with your eyes. You can listen with your intuition. So if I'm in front of you, I can study your body language, and your arms and legs are crossed. I'm going to hand you a piece of paper and say, I want to draw something for you to get you to change your body language. But when I'm on the phone with you, it was much harder to figure out how to pierce the veil and connect. And now we're probably 5 years post-COVID, and I've gotten better at it. But initially, it was a challenge because I couldn't read you. I wasn't in front of you. I like the idea of Zoom. The lawyers don't want to do Zoom. They're too busy. If someone asks to do a Zoom, I'll be happy to do it. Sometimes on reviews where I'm trying to dig a little deeper and maybe do some bigger life insurance business, we might do a Zoom. But I have thousands of clients, and post-COVID, I've never seen them face-to-face.
I think that goes back. Would you agree that it goes back to knowing your market? What channel or medium that you're using to contact and have meetings and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's talk about underwriting for a second, because that seems to, like, for whatever reason, to this day, you and I go back to the days where we were at $2,000 taking blood, mini exams, mini EKGs, paper apps. If there was any eraser on it, it was thrown out. It had to be redone. You had to attest that you took the app in front of the person. You signed it together. Today's world, fast forward to this. What do you think about the underwriting today? And because people go, isn't everybody going to get declined? So just briefly, just kind of go through what your underwriting experiences are in today's world relative to what they were so long ago, or back when we were
So,
started.
so if you remember before HIV, they didn't do blood.
Correct. Ever.
So here's the first thing as someone that's going to ask someone to protect themselves with disability, you have to understand. And the physicians that treat your prospective clients don't understand this. And I'd suggest if you haven't been in the disability business, you don't understand it. Your health, and if you want to know if you're healthy, you can ask your doctor. If you want to know if you're insurable, you have to look at how does an insurance company contextualize risk, and it's not how your doctor looks at health. It's totally separate. And I'll tell you, underwriting's coming a long way. Mike and I will go back to years ago. If you saw a psychiatrist one time, you were uninsurable.
Forever.
Um, so point one, your health is not about your risk. Risk assessment is different. So when you're screening someone for disability, in my opening interviews, I'll say, when I started years ago, there were probably about 150 carriers beating each other up to do this. There's less than 10 carriers left. Why is that? Life expectancy is better than it's ever been. It's better than it's ever been, but the things that used to kill people don't kill them, they disable them. There's more disabled people in the country than there's ever been. And if you take in consideration, some people are elderly disabled, some people are born disabled, some are fraudulent claims. Even if you take that off the graph, there's still more disabled people than there's ever been because the things that used to kill people don't kill them. I'll give you a painful example. When I was 7 years old, my father died of a heart attack. He had a heart attack. He was in the hospital. He had another heart attack, and he died. Why? 61 years ago, there was no such thing as angioplasty. Years ago, I heard Marius Barnard talk. Marius Barnard and Christian Barnard were in December, I think, of 1967. I might get the date, the month wrong. In Johannesburg, South Africa, they did the first heart transplant. Marius Barnard talked about being a new physician in cardiology. He said in the 60s, you came to him with chest pain. He said, I gave you nitroglycerin, gave you such a headache, you forgot about your chest pain immediately. So underwriting is not about your health. It's about how an insurance company contextualizes risks, and here's how you screen. So when I was younger and didn't understand what I was doing, I'd say, Mike, are you in good health? You'd say, yeah. Then we took your application. You're on 3 medications because you're bipolar. You have chronic back and neck issues, and you have untreated sleep apnea. And you had a headache, and the doctor told you to get an MRI, which you haven't done, but you think you're healthy. That's not how you ask the question. So here's how you put it in perspective. Back to what I just said. Life expectancy is better than it's ever been. You want to buy life insurance? We've got several hundred companies to choose from. There are less than 10 carriers in the disability market because things that used to kill people don't kill them. More disabled people than there's ever been in history. It's very hard to buy a disability policy. By the way, if you're lucky enough to pass the screening, once you have it, it's guaranteed they're stuck with you until you're 67. And the comprehensive nature of the policy promises if you're disabled, you're going to be taken care of. The challenge is, it's kind of like if you want to borrow money and you don't have any credit, you're out of luck. Now, let me ask you, if I may, do you have any orthopedic issues, back or neck problems, anything in that context? Now, if they say yes, I'm going to tell you, I have good news and bad news. If you have any back history, nobody's going to cover your back. Nobody, period. So here's the good news. And I won't go that boisterous with the client. I'd say, Mike, the good news is you got some back history. Do you think it's ever going to disable you? And what are you going to tell me?
No, that's the least of my worries.
No, it's nothing. Tell the underwriters it's nothing. Good. The good news is you don't think it's going to disable you. The further good news is, unless you're on narcotic pain medicine for it, it's not going to cause you to get uninsured. They won't cover your back. So just know that up front. And by the way, there's two kinds of insurance companies, the one that tell you the score up front and the ones that don't. So the good ones are going to tell you up front what they're not going to pay. And wouldn't you rather know that than find out later on when you have a claim that they're not going to honor it? So first I want to know about orthopedic issues, because if you have any orthopedic issues, they're going to exclude it. And let's get it out of the way up front so I'm not wasting your time or mine. Number two, I don't know what percentage of the population is on medicine for anxiety, depression, or attention deficit disorder. I could write a letter to the pharmaceutical industry telling them my attorney client should get a discount because they consume so much of these 3 pharmaceuticals. So here's what happens. You got a little anxiety, you go see a therapist. Here's what the therapist says. Sir, ma'am, do you have any work-related stress? What's the answer? I love what I do. Do I have work-related stress? Damn right. The underwriter gets the doctor's records, work-related stress. We're going to buy a claim. Tell me about visits to therapists, psychotherapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, and any medicine in that context. This is tough stuff. If you're on a lot of anxiety medicine, etc., you may not be insurable, and you as the advisor might want to move on. And I handle this way. Mike, normally if someone's on Prozac and anxiety medicine and trazodone to sleep, I'm going to have a terrible time getting you insured. So if we're going to go further, we have to have an agreement. I'm going to do my best to get you insured and get you an offer. And then I'm going to tell you if it's a good offer or not. And the agreement we have to have is if I tell you it's a good offer, that you'll go forward with it. Otherwise, I don't want to do the work. Now, if you tell me I don't want to do that, I'm okay with that, because I don't want to go through my time. I don't want the insurance company to go through their money. They come back with a 5-year benefit, a 50% rating, no coverage for depression, substance abuse, or attention deficit disorder. That's a good offer. How do I know it's a good offer? No one's going to improve it. But I want to get the agreement up front. If I'm going to do the work and the company's going to incur the expense, you're going to dance with me. And the judge is going to be, I'm going to tell you if it's a good offer or not. Now, if you say no to that, we'll part as friends. Next issue, tell me about neurological issues. Tell me about cardiac issues. Tell me about any other health history. You could have a healthy person I had a guy today, I've got to wait to take his app. His father died in his early 40s of an aneurysm. On my health questionnaire to pre-qualify him, he's been told to have an MRI as a preventative measure. Now, if they get his internist records, which they'll get, and it says the internist said to have an MRI, it's not done, he's not getting insured. So once you have someone agree to you that they want to have disability insurance, you really need to dig deep into their health history. Don't ask them if they're healthy. And if they have issues, tell them up front you're willing to work hard to get them insured, that most of your clients don't get perfect offers. And if you're going to do the work, they have to trust you if it's a good offer and be willing to go forward. If they don't want to do that, move on.
Well said. Well said. Thank you for sharing that, Irwin. I think what I always share with a lot of producers, and we talk a lot about on the podcast, is the importance of having that underwriting pre-screen or field underwriting, whatever you want to call it, having that process dialed in. So you perfectly articulated that. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on pre-screen.
Just to add to that, the favorite conversation goes like this. The person gets a less than perfect offer. They call up their doctor and they say to the doctor, well, good God, what'd you put in the medical records? And the doctor goes, the insurance company they're morons. There's nothing wrong with you. And I say, okay, call the doctor back and ask him to pay your claim. It's easy for the doctor to be an armchair quarterback. His money's not on the line.
Yep.
Grayson, any other questions you have for Irwin today? Because he's taken us pretty much from soup to nuts on this thing. And anybody that listens, and we've had this conversation, Irwin is always phenomenal about being a complete open book about how he does things. He told me years ago, there's no secret sauce, Mike. This is what I do. This is how I do it. The problem is a lot of people will hear it and they just choose not to do it. Fair statement, Irwin?
Yes. Yeah, you got to be willing to go through the pain to get good at what you do. And back to my earlier comment, there's so few of us doing this today. I'm 68. On the rare occasions I go to an industry meeting, they need space for everyone's walkers because everyone's older than me.
Isn't it funny? That's how we both feel. We're still sometimes. That's why I love hanging out with Grayson. I can have somebody that's a lot younger than me to hang out with. It's in the
So
industry.
I'll leave your audience with the question. What would it feel like to wake up 5 years from now and have $300,000 of renewal income coming in, 25 grand a month before you went to work? People, I think, like to manage money because they get, fee for service on the money. I think AI is going to give them a run for their money. I saw an interview a while back with Warren Buffett, and this is crushing to anyone who manages money. Warren Buffett said he told his wife when he dies, she doesn't need a financial advisor. Just put the money in a low-cost S&P index fund.
I saw the exact same thing.
So here's the point. AI cannot get people to buy disability insurance. You have to engage them. You have to care about them. You have to explain the risk. And I want to give you one other huge opportunity. And just about every lawyer I sell has group disability insurance. Here's their thinking, and here's where it's fractured thinking. I have benefits from work. Now, here's the first problem with your work benefits. People don't stay at companies. When you leave a company, they stay behind. Number one. Number two, sometimes if I have a good relationship with an attorney, I'll say this to them. Do you think when HR designed the law firm's benefits, they were thinking about you?
We all know the answer.
No. So why do you want to think, well, the employer took care of me? Not to disparage the employer. The employer's job is to give you the benefits they have to give you to work. So number one, employee benefits are not portable. Number two, HR is not thinking about you. They're not responsible for you when you're disabled. Number three, here's what group disability looks like, and here's the blind spots. Most of my clients have a group disability plan paid by the employer, gives them 60% of their income on a taxable basis with potential Social Security offsets. So if they're disabled, they're losing 40% of their take-home pay. Most of them are on the employer's health insurance. If they're disabled, either in 3 or 6 months of disability, they're no longer employed. Now they have to come up with the cost of health insurance. Number three, go on my website and see an article about Rebecca Egoff. October 4th, I'm not breaching a confidence. This is on my web, article out of Chicago Dental Journal. October 14th, 1992, 5:30 in the afternoon. Rebecca Egoff driving down Chicago Avenue, going westbound at Damon. She's in the wrong place at the wrong time. 16-year-old kid sees rival gangbangers across the street, starts firing. She gets a bullet through the windshield of her Volvo. She's been disabled since October 14th of 1992. Her disability benefits ended recently. She has no retirement money, not because she didn't plan. She hasn't paid into Social Security since 1992. Her husband had to change careers, work out of the home and care for her and raise their 12-year-old daughter. So if you're disabled, what happens to your 401k contributions? They're gone. What do you do when the disability benefits end? You're losing 40% of your income. You're losing your health insurance. You're losing any potential bonus. You're losing retirement funding. Are you okay with that? Did HR point that out? Did the guy who manages your 401k or your portfolio point that out? No. Why didn't they point that out? It's not that they don't care about you. It's not what they do.
Well said.
Guys, it's flattering to be here with both of you. What else can I tell you before we call it a day?
Well, one more. Talk a little bit about us having you back and this coaching opportunity that you're creating. I think that our viewers or our listeners specifically would find that interesting. And
So
I myself do.
I'm about 90 days out from launching it, and here's the essence of it. You can't succeed in this business if you can't find people to do business with. And ideally, you want to find a lot of them. So just like we screen for disability, I'm going to screen for the people that I coach because I want a high success rate. They have to be willing to do what I ask. I won't ask anyone to do anything that's illegal or moral. They have to be willing to work. And it's all about helping them find a market or two or three and penetrate the market. I'll take it a step further where the idea came from. When I was new in the business, I specialized in gas stations. Why did I do that? When I was a teenager, I pumped gas at a gas station. I came to understand a little bit about it. And back in the day, on every corner, there were 3 or 4 gas stations. They were franchises, and the guys that owned them did okay. back to the definition of a prospect. They were approachable. They had a need. They had the money. Most of the time, they were insurable. So I went from gas stations to physical therapists, from physical therapists to physicians and dentists, from physicians and dentists to lawyers. Here's where some of this came from. Back to Peter Mullen getting a market and specialize. The guy who wrote The Millionaire Next Door, trying to remember his name. I don't know if you guys remember his name.
I don't remember. It's been a while.
Around 1985, he gave a speech at the top of the table. I wasn't at the meeting, but I got the audio cassette of the speech. And here's what he said. He said, so before my talk today, I interviewed some of your top of the table guys. I asked one of you, who's your best client? Blacktop paver. How many do you have? One. Who's your next best client? Dry cleaners. How many do you have? One. Who's your third best client? Multiple franchise fast food location guy. How many do you have? One. And he went on to say, he goes, I'm an expert in pizza because I read Pizza Today. So here's the essence of the coaching program. How would you like to dominate a market, whether it's guys who own McDonald's? By the way, I would skip physicians and dentists. It's over-penetrated and insurance companies don't want them anymore. You want to go where there's opportunity. So the coaching program looks like this. It's a year-long coaching program. It's going to be $1,500 a month. And at the end of that year, you're going to learn everything I do. We're going to find some markets that work for you. You're going to learn how to find markets, how to cold call these people and get appointments, and how to do more business than you have time to keep up with. So reverse thinking. For some people, if someone cancels an appointment, they feel stress. When someone can't keep an appointment with me, I feel relieved because I'm hustling to keep up with the activity. So the coaching program is going to be all about how to figure out a science with a whole framework that works on how you can penetrate a market, stand out in a market. And I'll tell you a great story about specializing in a market. Not too long ago, I'm in competition with another guy on a lawyer. And he's going through the same brokerage general agent I am, and he's recommending another carrier. And he's the in-law of the guy I'm trying to do business with. At some point in the process, he calls me and goes, could we share a case? Can we do joint work? And I go, Jesus, you're related to this guy. Why are you wanting to do joint work? And he goes, because he's going to buy from you and he's my relative. True story, because if you know the market and you know your product, people can't compete with you. People get your business. So the coaching program, here's what it's not. It's not about what product should you choose. It's not about what carrier should you work with. It's not about anything but how do you find a never-ending supply of people to do business with and stand out and be the go-to person because no one knows the market like you do.
Well said. We'll give you the 90 days. We'll have you back. Now,
sounds like a plan.
It's been fantastic having you. I know you're in the middle of a move from the big old great city of Chicago down to Florida.
It's very funny here. I'm in Boca, and it's very funny when you go out to dinner in Boca. I can say this obviously with a name like Cohen, I'm Jewish. So we get here the first week, we go to an Italian restaurant, and there's two couples from New York sitting at the next table. They're senior citizens, and what are they talking about? They're talking about their health. And one lady says to the other, "Oh my God, your doctor gave you gabapentin? Oh my God, that's horrible." And I'm thinking, I had back pain. I'm on gabapentin. I'm still here. So it's great to be here in Florida, away from the cold winters in Chicago. Guys, it's always a pleasure to be with other disability guys. I am flattered that you had me here. For everybody that gets to hear this podcast, I hope it makes a difference for you. Just in case some of the people listening are looking to connect with me, here's the story. If you email me, I will try to answer your email. If you call me during business hours, I will block you unless you're going to buy a policy. And guys, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate the invitation. I'm flattered.
Irwin, wishing you a great move. And again, we can't thank you enough for doing this for us today and our whole viewing and listening audience. Appreciate you so much, my friend. You're a dear friend and a wonderful man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Irwin. And to all of our listeners, especially producers, you should save this episode, listen to it twice, and take notes.
Thanks, guys. All the best.
All right, Irwin, be well. Thank you. Bye-bye. And remember, financial planning starts with a risk protection package first.
And your clients are counting on you. See you on the show next time.
All right, my friend, be well.